terms of the steps of developing a media relations strategy, I don't know if it's 5 steps or 10 steps or 3 steps. It depends on, again, it depends on the program, it depends upon the story. I think the first thing is to look at what it is you're trying to say, not from your point of view, and not from the reporter's point of view, but from the reporter's audience point of view. Just because you want a media outlet to cover what you're doing doesn't necessarily mean they will. It's like any sales. It's not a matter of buy my product. It's looking at your prospect, ascertaining your prospect's needs, and framing your message in a way that will resonate with them. So if you can come up with a story that you think CNET, for example, readers would be interested in, it has to be approached that way. Peter Drucker once said the real role of a public relations program is not so much to get the company's message out into the world, but to get the world's interest into the company. So you always have to build it backwards, saying, okay, if we're doing this, why would anybody care? And if somebody would care, how would they care? And what's the right media outlet that would go for it? So every story, every message really has to be looked at carefully in terms of who we're trying to reach, what's the best channel for this, and how can we articulate this message in a way that will resonate with the audience of that media channel, be it either print or radio or television. And if you build it backwards, you'll get that. So you'll get interest from the press, because the reporter's job is not to promote your company, but to find news of interest to his or her reader or viewer or user or whatever the media platform is. Identify what the story is, identify what the message is, but then everything changes. You could sit down and say, this could be a really good story for the Wall Street Journal, and you get it all set up for the Wall Street Journal. That afternoon, Rupert Murdoch announces that he's trying to buy Dow Jones, and they're not going to be interested in your story. You might have to say, okay, there's too much stuff going on out there for us to even go ahead with trying to get reporters interested in this story today, and let's sit on it for a day or 2 days or a week. Or you might go to a reporter who you think is very interested in, and she just says, no, I'm not interested in that. So again, going back to it, saying it's an improvisational process. It's not like advertising where you could say, okay, on Thursday, May 15th, we are going to run this ad, and then the ad will break on the second ad will break on May 16th and May 17th. You can just basically fill out a sort of a framework, but the challenge is when people get too rigid in terms of plans and goals on a media relations program without allowing for expansion, improvisation, they find they get locked into something, and then the world changes or the news cycle changes, and they don't have a plan B, they don't have a fallback. So you're constantly looking at multiple shifting scenarios. It's not a simple checklist the same way that you would do it with an ad campaign.